Gwen says, do you have any advice for making the same thing twice? I'm not talking about batching out parts, but rebuilding a completely finished project. I made a clock out of an old piano with black and white keys splayed radially around the face. I've had requests to make another for friends and family, and I have enough materials, but my brain won't let me. It says, that thing is done. There's no more dopamine in that direction, and I can't even start. I totally feel you. I absolutely feel you. I agree too. I know what it is to have the no dopamine response to the idea of executing something a second time. And I really, really get it. So there's plenty of times in which I just listen to that and I don't build a thing a second time. But I want to tell you that building something more than once is an incredible exercise. It teaches you a lot more than you think. And I think the thing I want to ultimately tell you is the endorphin rush will be there. The dopamine will be there at the end, even though you might not feel it at the beginning, at the outset. Because when you go back into something, it is this great chance to recapitulate what you've gone through. And there's often a significant refinement that happens when you go back in. Look, it's very, very hard to build something again. I mean, I've talked on the channel about like getting something to 95% and breaking it and have to remake that part. That is awful. I hate that. And still, my mitigating strategy for dealing with the fact that I hate that is I remind myself, if you were on the clock, you would just do it. If you were on the clock, you would just make it happen. Now, all that being said, I recently came across a writer whose process seems amazing to me. Her name is Lauren Groff, and my wife has been reading her vociferously for the past few weeks. And she's been watching interviews with her, and apparently Lauren Groff's practice with a novel, this is incredible to me, is she writes it in longhand. She writes a novel in longhand and then throws it away. She throws away the manuscript and then writes the novel again in longhand. And she makes the assumption, she's not rereading I don't know if she's not rereading, but she's making the assumption that the good stuff, the good words, the good rhetorical ideas will show up again. And she does this like 5 to 8 times and says that there's a moment when it's really flowing and she really understands the book. Oh my God. The idea of that sounds so pure and so impossible to throw away your work, but like trust the brain. That is deeply incredible to me. And in fact, wait a second. There was something else that had... it is great practice to build the same thing twice. It will make you a better maker every time you do it. And it is worth doing to build the muscle to be able to do it. It is worth doing. I do not know. I mean, it's funny. When I talk about my sorting philosophy here at the cave, I take an object like a playing card case and I think to myself, where should this go? And then I think, wait a minute, where would I look for it if I needed it right now? And then I put it there. I'm trusting my brain to come to the same conclusion a second time if I really truly went with the first thought, best thought. And when Lauren Groff is throwing away a manuscript, she's doing the same thing. At this scale, it is gigantic. Oh my God. I'm just so absolutely gobsmacked by that as a process. And really, with such admiration. Greg Stin asks, as a developing scenic designer, I'm curious if you have any suggestions of exercises and practices to help someone develop their design philosophy and elevator pitch. There are so many kinds of shows and design styles and scales of productions that someone can't be a master of all of them. How does your brain and thought process change from one production gig to another, given all the hundreds of design variables? Well, there's all sorts of hundreds of design variables, but there's also you. You are the common denominator. And this has something to do with making the same thing twice. There's some commonality here. Is everything going good? Okay. I'm going to read the front part of your question again. This is, as a developing scenic designer, I'm curious if you have any suggestions of exercises and practices to help someone develop their design philosophy and elevator pitch. Okay, those are two different things. Design philosophy and elevator pitch. So elevator pitch is you are wanting to be able to communicate something to somebody, and you're calling it an elevator pitch, so you want something from them. You want them to agree with your idea. And there's environments where you might not know your idea. Well, let me talk about this from a design development metric. When you are a beginning designer, as you say you are, developing scenic designer, you don't know all of your aesthetics. You don't know your own internal aesthetic landscape yet. You are learning it. This is why, like, art school just makes you iterate for months and months and months and years and years and years. Because in that iteration, you keep on hearing little dings that will eventually be the landscape of your design philosophy. So, the best exercises and practices to develop your design philosophy is to just keep designing. Read about, in New York in the latter 80s, I dated a woman who worked at a gallery, an art gallery. And New York is packed with art galleries that actually make their artists a living wage. I mean, not packed, but like up on Upper Madison Avenue and the Upper East Side, there are a bunch of galleries. And she worked at one of these galleries. And the artists that they carried, they all made a living from their work. And I grew up with an artist that made a living from his work, but I was curious, and so I asked my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, "Hey, is there a commonality between the artists in the gallery you represent?" And she said, "They're all different disciplines, different aesthetics, but if there's one thing that unifies them is they are all obsessed with and know everything that's going on in the space that they're in. They understand the landscape that they are part of deeply." So that is a practice, to understand the landscape you are part of. And as you iterate, and frankly, as you fail at elevator pitches, you will also get to understand your design philosophy better. And there's another thing about being a young designer I want to talk about, which is there are opportunities that will show up and you'll be like, this is a great opportunity. I really want to take advantage of this. But when you're young, one of the questions you might not ask is, do I want to do this? And that's the most important question. Because when the answer is yes, you're going to be excellent at that. And when the answer is no, you're not. And a later mature designer is always asking themselves, does this fit within the landscape of the kind of problems I want to set for myself? So among the exercises and practices I would recommend would be to read everything you can about other designers in the space, go see tons of shows, try to get backstage, see how shows work. All of these things will give you perspective that will make you better at understanding your design philosophy and then explicating it. I don't think that we are born with like I'm a this kind of person designer. I think we develop and we change all over the place all the time. And there are some projects, I'll tell you, I've worked on projects where I did not have a specific design philosophy, and neither did the group I was working with, but we all sort of figured it out together. Sometimes that is an excellent way to work. But sometimes I've also known exactly how I wanted a project to go and really worked to get everyone to pull on that rope. It's not about all the different hundreds of design variables. It's about how you want to execute a problem. Yeah, that's it. When you're taking on a problem that you don't really want to take on, but the opportunity seems too good to pass on, that's where you're like, oh, where do I settle? You're always going to design, you're always going to be best at solving the problems you're the most interested in. Thank you for watching. I wanted to talk to you about Tested membership. The Tested members are a key community that we find really, really remarkable. That's very separate from Tested and from YouTube. The Tested members, they buy each other memberships during our live streams. So if you're wondering whether to become a member, watch one of our live streams and someone may just give you one. It is hard to overestimate how much the Tested members actually make possible on this channel. They give us a lot of wiggle room. They give us a huge amount of feedback.
That's a member right now.
Thank you so much for enjoying your membership. Description for everything you need to know. And for all the members out there, thank you, thank you, thank you.